Hey guys, Buckeye Bar Guys. We wanted to thank you guys for tuning in to us here on Buckeye Bar Talk. Great show we got coming up today. We're really looking forward to you guys listening and watching it. But just wanted to remind everybody, just remember to subscribe to the channel, hit the all notifications bell, and that way, anytime a new show comes up, you guys will be alerted to it. And don't forget to like the video and comment on the video. All interactions with us helps us continue to grow, and we appreciate your support. Now to the show. Welcome back, everybody, to Buckeye Bar Guys here on Buckeye Bar Talk. I'm Mike.
And I'm John.
Tonight's date is Saturday, July 30th, 2022, and we're actually 34 days when probably everybody hears this until the start of the season. We're officially we were 5 weeks to kick off from today, so we're getting in there. Camp is actually starting here in a couple days on the 3rd, which is this coming Wednesday. So pretty excited to talk about that. We'll talk a little bit just our thoughts getting ready to head into the camp here at the end of this episode. Just kind of pre-camp stuff. We'll get probably more into camp next week once some information starts actually flowing out from different reports coming from camp. We're going to start the show tonight on some recruiting stuff that we want to go over, just talk about, and then we had Big Ten Media Days this week, so we'll talk about Ryan Day's press conference and just some of our other thoughts going around about the thing. Just some general Big Ten thoughts, I guess. All right, let's get started. So recruiting is we've had an interesting probably 10 days in recruiting. So we went from having an unbelievable end of that stretch. I mean, we just talked about on our last episode. I mean, we had how many guys commit in a how many day period there. I mean, and prior to that, we had the receivers, and we had a bunch of commitments while we were away on vacation. And I mean, June going into July was looking like a very stellar recruiting. We've had the opposite spectrum of July. So with July on recruits, so we've lost quite a probably some 6 big name kids that they were pretty much going over the last week or so. A couple of really big ones that they were really pushing for. Obviously, everybody knows about Caleb Downs. He committed to Alabama. And I think probably the one I think that stings the most. Well, it's kind of tight. Downs probably stings the most just because of where he was rated. But then John Walker, considering he commits to UCF. I mean, Ohio State was not the only big school that he spurned. I mean, Florida was on that list, and so was Miami, and I think a couple others pretty good named schools. But I think that one probably, at least to me, I mean, you lose kids like Caleb Downs to schools like Alabama. I mean, that's part of the competition that goes with those. Everybody knows what kind of recruiter save it is. But the other one was the one that just sucked to me because it seemed like we were really starting to really trend very favorably for him. And then it's kind of in that last week or so, it started really going away that UCF was going to get him, and I didn't believe it, and then it ended up happening. So just your thoughts over the last couple of weeks of how recruiting's been. And obviously we did have a commitment today. We'll get to that in a second, and we had a decommitment today, so that's kind of going with the whole thing. So we'll start with these new commitments we've lost, and then we'll go into the commitment, and then we'll talk or decommitment, and then we'll talk about the quarterback committing. Just your thoughts of what we've lost, or the kids that just didn't commit this week that at one point or another we were very high with. And before, let me preface, this are all pretty much all defensive kids, so that's kind of that's kind of which we'll get into too. There's been a lot of talks about the defensive recruiting. So just your thoughts, John.
Tackett Curtis, that hurts a lot because he went over to USC, and this is someone that Jim Knowles was in on for 2 years, going back to Oklahoma State. He was a perfect fit for Jim Knowles' system. Really seemed like Ohio State was a sure thing for him. I know he had family that played at Wisconsin, so they were kind of up in the air because that was just had some closeness to him. And then USC was kind of just like the outlier for the longest time. And then Lincoln he stole him. I don't know what happened with that. I don't know if Jim Knowles thought he had it in the bag and, let up on it. I think there's a bigger thing at play when it comes to just what we've had on the field the last couple years. Troy Bowles, I mean, I think, whenever I know Ohio State was really big on him and they wanted him there, it's when you're pulling, the number one linebacker from the South, like that's a hard get. And I know that, I know we were in it till the end. That's awesome. But Georgia is the defending national champion. That's what they do is defense. And he's from Florida, right? Isn't his dad a coach for Tampa Bay?
Dad's the head coach now for Tampa. He's taking over. Yeah, he's taking over for. At least I'm like 95% sure that Bowles he take the job because what's his face just retired last year or coming off of this year. But I thought he took. If not, he's the defensive coordinator. So like he's in
So I mean that's a really hard pull. Caleb Downs, you talked about. I mean, it's freaking Nick Saban in Alabama. I mean, that happens. I mean, they're going to be in it till the end for all those kids. So you got to keep swinging, and that's is what it is. John Walker, to me, that one is very odd. Just like what you said that he went to UCF, and I know that's a family thing. At least that's what everyone says. Mom wanted him to stay as close to home as possible. So I don't know if that's something that could flip, down the road or not. Maybe he goes to Florida, maybe, Miami, one of those other Florida schools. Who knows? I don't know if he'll come all the way up here, but that one was very odd to me because you're not that good and you go to UCF over the other offers that he had.
I mean, if you're going to stay close to home, being the talent that he is,
go to the SEC.
Yeah, go to Florida. Even Miami. I mean, Orlando is basically in the middle of both schools. Yeah. So like if he would have went to one of those schools and his parents wanted him to stay at home and Ohio State lost, okay, I'll live. Like it's just, and like I said, I guess I shouldn't be like angry or, I mean, I'm not angry at him. I mean, angry in general or upset in general because it's not like Ohio State it wasn't like it just came down to Ohio State and UCF and he chose UCF. I mean, Florida and Miami are still there, and, it's going to be very hard to steal an in-state kid if the parents want him to go to an in-state school, and, Florida is on the other end of that. You lose battles like that, but it's just like, yeah, I mean, UCF, I mean, I get it. It's a nice campus, tons of kids there, but, I mean, who knows? Maybe he got something really nice thrown to him, from the Orlando community with the NIL. I mean, any of that stuff can happen now. It's just that was the weird one. But I mean, best of luck to him. I'm not gonna.
But to go back to that, I guess I mean couldn't ask for a better team for him to go to. That's not going to ever affect Ohio State. What I'm saying is not. I mean, I doubt he's ever going to be the difference maker between Ohio State winning a national title or not. So
yeah. Exactly.
I guess that's the best. If it's not going to be, the Buckeyes, I guess that's the next best thing for us.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that one was a little weird. So, we'll talk about the decommitment here just because it also affects the defense. So, I forget, it's Dijon, right? That was
Dijon Johnson. Yeah, he's another Florida kid. Florida kids. I mean, it's hard to get them early in cycles because they got all those schools down there. They're down south. It's beautiful down there. They got great football down there. It's hard for especially northern school to pull them out of Florida.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, let's just in general, we'll talk about just kind of the defense. So the defensive recruiting, I mean, until I'm proved otherwise, I'm not going to. Basically, my thoughts on defense is, 3 out of 4 seasons, our defense has not been that spectacular. I mean, they haven't been horrible neither, but 2019
they've had really horrible spots on their defense. Yeah. I think 2018 is actually like, I know they get a lot of crap. If you go back to 2018, it was just like every game they gave up a big play. But after that, they were okay. Like, I mean, they had their faults here and there. Don't get me wrong. They were far from perfect, but it was just, they gave up, big plays. I mean, going last year, you had 3 teams that, ran at will. on them. Thank God Mo Ibrahim got hurt in that first game.
Yeah.
Not that I hate to say that, not thank God he got hurt. I mean, I felt terrible what happened to the kid, but for Ohio State, thank goodness that there was something that slowed him down. And then, I mean, 2020, the deep safety play was just abysmal. They couldn't stop the pass whatsoever.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, they've had, and then so to me, it's just that they've had a stretch of defenses where, 2019 is like the outlier. Like when you look at like kind of like early to the mid urban era, 2013 was the outlier, and that just was a bad defense. Every other defense in there was fine, and some of them were pretty elite. And so
2015 through 2017 are real deal defenses.
Yeah. I mean, 2017, so, starting a little stagger, but it was nowhere like 2018. But yeah, 15 and 16 are, really, really, really good defenses. And I mean, and at the end of the year, 14's really starting to, shine at different spots. I mean, they're a national title defense. 12's defense was good. So 13, that was a bad defense outlier where it just seems like in those last several years, 19's good defense was
right. 19's like 19's the anomaly, and it shouldn't be that way.
Yeah, and that's usually, and for Ohio State fans, I mean, we've been around for a long time into the fan base. I mean, you're just not used to that, Ohio State defense that, you have anomaly defenses every now and then, but usually they're bad defenses, and they're surrounded by a lot of good defenses. But this one, it's just been like, 19 was a very good defense, and the rest of them have been, subpar to, kind of bad, in a lot of ways. And that, so I think that, there, a lot of the good things about Knowles is still there, of what, everybody talks about him. I just think it kind of needs to be proven on the field now. And, Walton and Eliano, they need to prove themselves as defensive backs coaches. And I think if, I mean, we'll talk about this in a minute when we get to the media days. But Ryan Day, and rightfully so, he should say that he wants them to be a top 10 defense. Like, I mean, personally, I've said on here that if they're a top 20 defense, a top 25 defense, I think they're going to be really hard to beat this year because their offense. I mean, that's a lot better than what their defense was last year, and they're playing a much tougher schedule this year. So if they could get to that point with that offense, that's a national championship caliber team because of the offense that they have. Now, if they could get to top 10, Ryan Day should have a, I want you guys to be a top 10. I mean, if he came out and said, top 25 is our goal, I mean, that would have been a lot of red flags to me. But, top 10 is exactly the type of goal that they want. And I think if they get there, then I don't know if any team in the country can beat them because that's going to be just an uphill battle with that offense. But I think if they prove themselves and Knowles proves himself that he's the defensive coordinator we all think he can be, and the back coaches prove themselves that they are good defensive back coaches, then I think we're fine going forward. Yeah. And I've said the same thing. I mean, just offensively, I've said the same thing about Coach Fry. I just think he needs to prove himself. He needs a season to show that what he's about, and then, we'll start getting some of these kids going forward. So
I mean, not to cut you off, I listened to these guys in their press conferences though. Like all three of them have good personalities. Like Jim Knowles, I know Jim Knowles has never, recruited anywhere near this level before, so he's going to have to do that as a defensive coordinator. Like Ryan Day has him there, and Ryan Day has to be, and we could talk about this more in a little bit. He has to be more involved with the defensive recruiting. I mean, he has to start being Urban Meyer. He has to close things. Like people got to think they're playing for a rock star head coach that cares about defense as much as he cares about offense. But he brought Jim Knowles in to be his defensive head coach, not his defensive coordinator. He wants him to be the head coach of the defense. And to go along with development, the guy's, he's got to sell himself to get kids to come play for him. And I'm not saying he can't do that. But outside of him, Eliano, Walton, and Fry, all their press conferences, you can tell these guys are all, great personalities, easily can talk to kids. So I really think they just got to show that they can do it on the field. Once people see that they can develop, I think recruiting is going to fall right in line with all of them. It's just, it's a terrible time. Ryan Day had to make the changes and that hurts this cycle, and that's what it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, exactly. I definitely agree with that. Just like the things that kind of make me nervous is, and I think if they prove themselves as good coaches and the defense really improves, then everything's fine. But LJ is going to be retiring here eventually. I mean,
Yeah, that's
so I
true.
mean, if the defense, if the defense is not where it needs to be and it starts taking a step back, and then the one solid recruiter that you have for sure because and he ends up retiring, that could be a domino effect that's not good for the defense. So this is a very important year. They got to get this defense back on track because they need a they need that safety net for when he does decide to retire, that they have other coaches there that are can hey, we've improved our defense, look how good we did, and Coach Eliano, Coach Walton, we can pick up that slack.
Mhm.
We talked about this in the offseason. I still think I mean, I want to be proven wrong. I think the biggest mistake that probably I loved everything that Ryan Day did with this defense and this offseason. I love all the extra assistant coaches he also brought in. I still am falling on that line that I think that I don't know if they can find a way to keep Parker there, but they needed another defensive coach, I felt, and another linebacker coach,
Mhm.
specifically just you know, and it's fine if Knowles wants to be part of the linebackers too, but I would rather him just be the defensive head coach and not necessarily have a position thing. I wish they would have brought in another, whether that was a linebacker coach or bring in an assistant defensive line coach, that's ready to take over for LJ when LJ is ready to retire. Like either or, I would have been fine with. But I think they needed another defensive coach in there that actually can go out and recruit a younger guy. Um, until I'm proven wrong, I'm gonna side with that. That I just
Yeah.
think that that's where I think that's still the mistake that's there. That I think they need another defensive coach in there to keep splitting those recruiting duties up. And I mean, we have that many guys on the offensive side of the ball. I just think we need them to. Somebody can take on defensive response to the special teams responsibilities. I don't know who's that, but one of them can. Somebody can take on
Well, I
special
think
teams.
Eliano did it at Cincinnati. I think that's
Yeah.
part
So
of his job task there. Yeah, I mean, I still completely agree with you on this because I can't fathom. I mean, Ryan Day, his whole shtick is he's the one of the greatest young offensive minds. But I mean, you got to have your balance on defense. Then you got your head coach is the offensive mind, so you got your extra coach already on offense. So get it balanced on the defensive side.
yeah, I mean, and Knowles maybe coming in, he wasn't the biggest. I mean, they brought him in specifically to change the defense, not necessarily about recruiting. I mean, I know recruiting goes with it, but that was kind of where Walton and Eliano was coming into that they're. But at that point, LJ's older. That's maybe
Yeah.
not necessarily Knowles' specialty. So I just think they're they should have brought in another younger defensive coach to help in the recruiting part of it. Just I mean, just my thoughts, and I think maybe I still think the biggest thing is that the defense has to improve, but I think that's a secondary issue.
Yeah, no, I mean I agree with that. I just I think the team, they should have. Yeah, I agree with you. They should have had a another defensive coach. I don't know why they didn't, but it is what it is. I mean, I think there's also another thing I think with the defensive recruiting that might have been lost over the last couple years that we're not really thinking of. I don't really think they got that like Captain Buckeye in this year's recruiting class. Like you had Jack Sawyer, you had CJ Hicks, guys that just were going to be there every weekend, that you could have guys on official visits, at different times, but that main dude from the state of Ohio was always going to be there, that
Yeah,
the same side of the ball. I think we're missing that this year. I mean, I'm trying to think of like who we have in state. I know, was it Malik Hartford from Cincinnati for a safety? And I know Will Smith Jr., but I don't think either one of them are really, seen as the same light nationally as maybe like your Jack Sawyer or
yeah,
your Jay Hicks. And I think that does have it plays a role in it. Like, I don't know what Sonny Styles' personality's like, but if he didn't reclassify, I mean, could he have been that guy this year? Maybe.
Yeah,
So
maybe.
I think there is a little, that's something to do with it, but I do think most of it is just people need to see this defense in action.
Yeah. And now, Eliano, when he put that photo out this week of all the guys that were at, I'm assuming it was his house for a cookout or whatever. You know, they're fine as long as, you don't have a huge run of injuries. They're fine with the secondary right now. They've brought in a lot of young kids over the last couple classes. So it's not like this would be a lost, and I shouldn't say a lost year, because they are going to pick up commits into the fall, and they might flip a couple of these kids that,
Yeah.
you never know what happens. They start looking good on defense, and some of these kids, well, things happen. And I'd rather have played for Ohio State, but I chose the safe choice, and now they look good, and I'm going to go back to where my heart was. So you don't know what the fall is going to hold for us. But I don't necessarily think a lost year on some defensive players kills them. That it's when you start compounding a lot of lost years, that's where, you start getting into trouble. And that was the main reason why Combs was brought in, because they had a lot of loss. They had
Right. Yes.
three lost years in a row in the secondary, and that killed them. And so that's why
they absolutely needed him to fix cornerback recruiting.
And that was the biggest reason. So, he was made the defensive coordinator because they wanted him back for his recruiting, and that was the position he wanted. So he was pretty much given what he was wanted. So, he would come back in, and to a point, I understand that. So 1 year won't kill him. If they show the improvement this year, they showed Knowles is the real deal. They might even pick up some big time kids in the fall. And going forward, I think they're fine. Then, you're going to be, you're on track with everybody's recruiting cycles. These guys have now met these younger kids, and I think you're fine going forward. It's just proving it on the field, I think, is the biggest thing.
Yeah, and you could always, hit it big in transfer portal next year. I mean, and you're going into people's senior season. Like, their senior football hasn't even started. I mean, Pantoni he has to do some work, maybe find some diamonds in the rough, but he could do it. If anyone could do it, he could do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Agree.
I had one more point. I can't even, I lost it though. Unfortunately, I don't I don't remember what I wanted to say, but yeah, that's
all right.
I'm just about, all these kids though, the one common denominator, all these defensive kids are from the South, and people got to remember, that is, I know we have a lot of pride in Ohio football. That is where the best football is played in high school, and that's where the best football right now is played in college. And there's realistically only 3 teams from the North that can probably compete for these kids. That's Ohio State, that's Notre Dame, that's Michigan. Ohio State leads the pack in them. So yeah, if you want Ohio State to keep swinging for the fences, going for the big shots, they're going to miss most of them, because it's hard to pull these kids out of there. But Ohio State, they could be done with their class right now. They could have filled all these positions if they just recruited Ohio kids. You want them to go after the best, and unfortunately, this is what happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you're still going to get some. That's the thing. You're still going to get some of them.
Well, the demographics of the country is, the population is moving to the South, and that's where, I think. This is because me and you both have very strong opinions in favor of spring football. So this is a discussion for another day. I don't know if we get into it because, camp is getting ready to start, but, maybe this is a bye week topic, Ohio has got great high school football. I think that is going forward something that Ryan Day really, really needs to push. And it's nothing about taking, kids away from other sports. Spring football isn't the entire spring. It's a couple weeks, a few weeks. And, I think where it really would help is the development of the trench guys. And, if we could plenty of offensive linemen are in Ohio. I don't have a problem. Where Ohio hurts, and where a lot in the North hurts, you're some of your big time defensive tackles, you can find good defensive ends in Ohio, really good defensive ends when you think about, guys like Harrison and Sawyer. I mean, there's plenty of top level defensive ends in Ohio that can grow in Ohio, is because that's just a different position where, I think in the trenches where they get hurt and they're always looking out of state is in defensive tackle, and then a couple positions on the offensive line, because you do have years where you don't have Ohio State caliber offensive tackles in the state. You have years that you have years that there's 3 or 4 in the state that are, top 20 offensive tackles in the country, and then you have years where, you have one in there. So it's like, there's hit and misses in there. So I think that would really develop those kids more if there was spring football and stuff. And where it would maybe develop some of our skill positions in state too would be 7-on-7. And that's something I think Ryan Day going forward really needs to start pushing the state of Ohio hard on, that they need those type of programs to, be competitive. And those are kids that are going to be favoring Ohio State, and, the majority of them. I mean, yeah, there's going to be some that, might want to, you get a kid from a Catholic school that might want to go to Notre Dame. You get just that Michigan lifetime fan. So yeah, you'll have a few that want to go to other schools, but the majority of them will want to go to Ohio State. So I just think going forward, and like I said, this is a topic for another day, because we probably could do a whole show on it, how we feel that they need spring football. One quickly on the recruiting. So Glenn Brock, that's his name, right?
Brock Glenn.
Brock Glenn. I hate people with 2 first names, but I'm gonna call him Glenn Brock a lot. So
yes, he's a quarterback from the 2023 class.
Yeah, so he committed today to Ohio State. So we got our 23 quarterback in there. So that's good. They keeps a quarterback in every class. We already have our 24 kid. I didn't necessarily, they thought they needed a 23 kid, but at the same time, you could lose a bunch of kids real quick. So, so it's not bad to have a 23 kid on the other side. And I like it. So that shows that he's okay with, competing, because, you still are going to have, the 2 that are there now after Stroud. And then, you got Rayola. Dylan Rayola.
Ariola's a boxer.
Yeah, he's a boxer. But they're coming in. He's coming in next year. I mean, top, basically 2 quarterback in the country. So I like the fact that he wants to come here, because that shows that he's not scared to mixing it up some, trying to win a job. So, so I already like them. I don't know a lot about him. I haven't really got an opportunity to see some stuff, but I like a moxie like that he was not scared away from this team, based on what they have in the room and what they are going to have in the room.
I mean, he's a top 400 kid. It's safe for everyone. He can learn under Ryan Day. He can fight to compete. He can take his talents elsewhere after a couple years, whatever he wants to do with that. I mean, that's fine. And that doesn't put Ryan Day in a position where, he gets another top 10 quarterback on the team, and, people are transferring before you want them to. So yeah, it's a good move.
I liked it. All right. So speaking of Ryan Day, so we had media days, this past week. The Big Ten, they were in gloat mode for the, how far the conference has come in the last couple years. I'm still not a Kevin Warren fan by any stretch of the imagination, but I did like what he said. I like that he had more of a moxie about him this time around. And I'm okay with a cocky commissioner, and he kind of came off a little cocky when he said that basically, I don't have the exact quote in it, but these conferences need to be looking at what the expansion, because when he basically called him Sears Roebuck, and that's basically saying you go bankrupt if you're not looking forward. So I thought that was kind of a ballsy statement on his part, but all right, that's where we are at. And it seemed like all the coaches have fallen in line, that there was a lot of cockiness of where the Big Ten is going. There should be, pulling the two Los Angeles schools out of California, out of the Pac-12, is a huge get. I don't care. I mean, uh, they all kind of are playing off each other. Who got the better two between the SEC and the Big Ten? But they both got some. Those four outside, not taking no. I mean, USC, UCLA, wouldn't necessarily include in that list, but three of those four would be the four elite schools that people would want to pull in their conferences, with being Notre Dame being the fourth. So that's that was a big win for the Big Ten. Ryan Day, he had a lot of good things to say. Things I really liked from what I heard between him talking and also just some of the other interviews that he had there is sounds like Latham Ransom's going to be ready to go. So, hey, safety, it's a safety heavy style defense. We've talked about a little nervous about maybe where some of the depth of the safeties was. So that could be a good thing that
helped out a lot.
That if he's ready to go, I mean, I don't know how much he's going to be able to. I mean, we'll see how much he's able to really produce, but another body's another body, and if he's really ready to go and he is healed, then that could be a really big deal.
Absolutely.
Obviously a lot of things about Notre Dame. I mean, that is such a huge game to be opening up the season with, which I like. It seemed like Ryan Day was, you kind of read between the lines, he said it should help. Should help keep everybody really focused for the fall camp, because there's a lot of electricity in the program. I believe that's how he put it. That's a huge game. Your fan base is really excited about it, and so that with it being a night game, it being Notre Dame, I mean, I'm expecting the stadium to be wild that night, and that's going to be awesome. So there's going to be a lot of electricity there. So it seems like everybody's really, really pumped up and excited to hear about that. And
realistically, that has to be the biggest opening game in Ohio State history, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they showed some of the big games. I mean, they had a 1978. They opened up against Penn State. I think they were like number 5 and number 4. That's either the year before or the year after. I think it was the year before they opened up against Alabama. That was a top 10 matchup. So they've had a couple top 10 matchups in there where, I mean, it's definitely in our lifetime, this is the biggest, because I mean,
where everything's televised, where everyone can see it.
Yeah, West Virginia 98, that was I think a top 20 matchup. I think Ohio State was 1 and West Virginia was 11 or 15 or something like that. So they were pretty good coming into the season. I think that was on the road. They've had a couple other ones in there. Washington was actually ranked in 2003. So that was a top 20
game. That was a good game.
So I mean, they've had a few on the schedule where they've had high rankings, but this is the first one in a while. I mean, I know Virginia Tech was considered a big road game in 15, but that was more that was just a revenge game for the Buckeyes thing.
Right.
But they were
Virginia Tech ended up 6 and 7 that year or something.
Yeah, they were super focused about that game, regardless if that was going to be the first game or the 5th game.
We were still losing at a point in that game
too. They were. It
doesn't feel like until you look back at it. That was a weird one.
Yeah, but that
was a weird season. We should have won 2 titles in a row. That season sucked, man.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's going to be. I mean, Notre Dame game is definitely going to be a big game. I'm really looking forward to really starting to dive into that over the next couple of weeks. I mean, that one's going to definitely be. And we kind of talked to we'll move this into the next thing. When Day says that he wants a top 10 defense, and a lot of was talked about in this offseason was the lack of leadership, that they tried to address, the lack of physicality and different things like that, and toughness that seems like that was off in a couple games last year, but that's a lot of that stuff's going to get answered this year. You're going to see who the leaders on the defense is. You're going to see if Knowles could get a top 10 defense because you're going to be playing. I mean, you play the two best known power teams on the western side of the conference in Wisconsin and Iowa. You're playing Notre Dame, and then you play, Penn State, Michigan, and Michigan State that are all going to be. That's what they're going to do. So you got 6 games this year that are really going to be against teams that are going to really try to toughen it out against you and run the ball and throw to the tight ends, and they're going to try to win in the trenches and get pressure on your quarterback. And so you're going to really see where this team is this year on a lot of those things. A lot of that stuff's going to get answered. And if they want to be a top 10 defense, the things that they try to address in the offseason, that's going to be important. They need leaders on this defense. They need, they need to get the physicality and that toughness, especially in the trenches, back to where, that is expected at this school. I mean, I'm sorry, it's a long history at this school that you don't get pushed around too often in the trenches, and that was the big issue on that defense last year.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, you lost your 2 games you lost were because you got blown off the ball on your defensive line.
Yeah.
I mean, Oregon was more like, Oregon had a lot of like scheme issues that people in the back end didn't know where they were supposed to be because they got beat on the same play 3 times for a touchdown.
Yeah.
But I mean, Michigan, that absolutely was it. I mean, not to make any excuses or anything, that game was only 8 points or whatever with 4 minutes left in. So, but I mean, with the Michigan game, that score could have been flipped if Ohio State's defense had any life in it whatsoever. I mean, yeah, it's hard with what Ohio State had to do when Michigan's defense just kept getting completely rested. And, if Ohio State's defense could answer the call just 1, 2, however many times, just once in that second half,
Yeah.
and, maybe make Michigan's defense go back on the field a little bit tired, who knows what happens?
Yeah. I mean, the Buckeyes are winning it. I mean, is it most of the first half, or I know they're winning for part of the.
They're part of it. I don't think it's most. I think it's a little bit in the second quarter they're winning.
Yeah, so I mean, they're winning for a portion of the first half. I mean, they're only down 1 going into the second half, so it's not like that they're in a bad position or anything. But yeah, they got just clobbered in the trenches in the second half. I mean, that's the difference of the game. And I mean, anybody can spend whatever they want on whatever, but that's what it was. It's just that they couldn't, especially on the defensive side, they just could not get off the field. And that's because Michigan was just running for first down after first down. And then, I think the biggest quote obviously said, because, they talked about this on Big Ten Network after the press conference, is, he said 11-2 and a Rose Bowl victory might be a big deal at some schools, but it's not there. And so I think that's just says what his expectations are, and those are the right expectations. I mean,
sure.
there's a lot of coaches around the country that coach at big programs that might say they go 11-2 and win the Rose Bowl, and they get kind of questioned about those 2 losses, and they'll start taking offense to that. Be like, we had a good season, and we had young guys. I mean, there was a lot of things that Ryan Day could take.
There's a lot of excuses he could have fallen back.
I mean, they did have a young team. They did have all that turmoil on defense. I mean, there's a lot of that. They are coming off all the craziness of COVID and stuff like that, and going early in the whole training thing, early into they weren't still a full team until after spring. And I mean, so yeah, a lot of things he could have fallen back on, but he didn't. So I mean, I love that part. Just want to see this defense get fixed, because I think if this defense gets fixed, then with his offense, I mean, it's just going to be very hard to beat them in any week, just because, I mean, their offense is almost guaranteed, mid 30s to 40 plus a game. And if you have a defense that you have a hard time getting, to the 20s, like against, that's a possibility. I mean, Jim Knowles, he could get them there, especially with the type of talent they have. So I think that if they really get that is just the biggest thing. The biggest things was the defense and, you know, just fixing whatever this thing now that's going around that they're not tough anymore. I mean, that was the one thing you never questioned when Tressel and Urban were the coach, that, you know, you always knew that they were tough. I mean,
Yeah. Yes, sir.
All right, so just to keep going. So, yep, that was, I mean, it's kind of the biggest things I wanted to hit on media days. I know it sounds like just a couple things real quick, just from the players' perspective. I mean, C.J. Stroud. I know Ryan Day said this, but it's definitely, I think he feels very good that, you know, he's not going to have a quarterback battle. You know, you have your starting quarterback, so that is going to help camp out that much more. Um, Sounds like Hickman's going to could be playing a lot more of that deep safety role, which is interesting.
Yeah, and that wasn't really something I expected, but if he can do it, that's great.
Yeah, I mean, and I mean, and it could be the reason why he's doing it. Part of the defense, it seems like at different times, Knowles' defense is that two of those safeties are back a lot, so it could be that, you know, it's kind of having two back safeties at different times instead of having just one back safety. So
Right, and they switch. They got to be able to do both also. So even
yeah,
though he might be doing the job on one play, the next snap they could be in the same look, and him and Proctor could absolutely just switch who's doing what role on that.
yeah.
So
So that's definitely again, we kind of talked about this in the off season. It's kind of like trying to get guys to be able to play multiple different things, because, you know, with the different rotations and stuff, they might be playing different multiple things. So but yeah, so I think that's kind of what wanted to go over for the media days, from what I remember watching it this week. It was nice seeing the, hearing the fight song and all that stuff. I put
yeah,
that on Twitter. That definitely gives the goosebumps that football is coming right around the corner. And then I guess so we'll just finish up on just our thoughts on camp. I mean, not a lot to say right now, just
no,
because we'll have more to say as, you know, the weeks go on. Camp starts this week. I mean, I'm going to tell you right now, the first thing I'm really looking forward to this week is just seeing all of them come in with all the shirts and the sign-ins and all that stuff. That's always that's always fun, that you know that you're back.
yeah,
The first pictures that come out of guys coming in with crazy looking shirts and stuff like that, and it'd be like, all right, football's back, and now we get to start talking about it. Uh, you know, going a lot now going forward as we get ready for the season. Um, and definitely looking forward. I'm sure. Usually, I'm pretty sure Day has a press conference on Wednesday. He usually does an opening day
yeah.
press conference. So
They
I'm looking
usually,
for
they usually do.
yeah. So I'm looking forward to that. Looking forward to see what days the media gets to get in there, so we can get some good tidbits and stuff like that. I'm just glad that it's starting. I'm glad to see what I hope it's a lot like last year, where it seemed like Day really let the media in a lot last year, and even more this spring, that he would let them in a lot. So you get a lot of things that flow out then. So I
Hmm.
hope it's like that. Um, but I'm definitely looking forward to it, because, you know, I'm just ready to. Much as I never like to wish the summer away, I'm just really starting to look forward to football now.
I'm ready for football, man. Yeah, I mean, I gotta agree with you. I'm excited just for it to get started, and again, media availability, just hear what's going on. I don't know if there's any certain like position grouping or anything right now that strikes me as like I want to know what's going to happen here. I mean, I think it's a pretty. I mean, anything I guess with linebacker is where I'm the most uncertain at, but
Yeah,
outs-
me too.
outside of that, I think it's like I think a lot of it's kind of we kind of know what to expect. Who's first, who's second string defensive line? That's a good question. But yeah, I'm ready for it to get started. That's what I'm excited for.
On the player, I mean, the only player right now that I'm actually really thinking about and like seeing where he kind of falls into stuff, just because we haven't seen him yet, is I'm looking forward to hearing stuff about Sonny Styles over the fall camp, because like he could actually be a contributor come, you know, if he I mean, there's such a lot of hype about him coming in, if he's ready, I mean, he looks in hell of a shape. I mean, from the picture that got sent out. If he's ready to go, and there's always that one freshman that that comes in over the summer. It seems like every year that kind of starts jumping up the list. That he's actually farther along than we thought he was. So
remember, he should still be a senior in high school.
But
so
hey,
this is more odd because, but I mean, I know JT, he came in with short rest, or he came in late last year and he contributed right away. So why not?
Yeah.
Why not Sonny Styles?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to. I'm just can't wait to start. After we get a couple days this week of here and talking about starting talking about stuff next week. Like at different times, it's like once spring practice ends, it's like you kind of get you get weeks where you got a lot of stuff to talk about and weeks where you don't got a lot of stuff to talk about, and it's like going forward we should have a bunch of information now every week that's out there. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. I'm excited to get this season started, excited to get this camp started, so looking forward to that. Don't know if there's anything else you really want to touch on for tonight, but definitely looking forward to everything here going forward.
Yeah, no, I'm good. Everything we want to talk about, we talked about. Just ready to talk about Notre Dame here in a couple weeks.
I'm ready to talk about Notre Dame, and I'm ready to talk about how this defense is improving. And who knows? I mean, I said, I was talking to a few guys on Twitter this week, and I'm like, yeah, I think they're a dangerous team if they're a top 20 defense, but. And people are saying it'll be really hard for them to get the top 10 with this the schedule that they're playing, and I agree with that. They have a lot to fix, but they have the athletes to fix it. And if he's got the scheme and they're picking up on it, and a lot what we heard in spring is that they were picking up on it a lot faster than they were expecting. And if all that is true and they continue progressing in this, here in this camp. By the end of the year, maybe they could be a top 10 defense, and and then I just be really looking forward to talking about Notre Dame to get the season rolling, but also looking forward to really deep diving into that because I want them to get that on track because I think that is just the missing piece right now, and if that's back on track, I mean, my God, that offense is just going to be. That offense is already going to be scary. That offense with getting the ball a couple more times a game because you're getting 3 outs and stuff. I mean, good luck.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I don't. At least the first half of their schedule up until because Michigan State's early, Penn State.
October's
October's
going to be really tough.
It's going to be hard for a lot of teams to be able to throw on them. I would think so.
Yeah. So you open up against Notre Dame. The end of September is Wisconsin, and then you got a big stretch in October. I mean, I know the first 2 weeks. I mean, you got Rutgers early, I believe, and I think Indiana's in there. But I think you got pretty much, and I know there's a bye week in there, but I think you got like Iowa, Penn State, and Michigan State 3 out of 4 weeks because the bye somewhere in there, and so that's gonna be a stretch right there. Yeah.
It's gonna be a tough schedule.
Yeah. Looking forward to that too. I like the amount of home games that they got, and I like I think the strength of schedule is going to be really good for them. Mm-hmm. So
I agree.
All right, I think we'll call it a night. So take us on out.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for stopping in tonight to the Buckeye Bar. I'm John,
and I'm Mike.
IO. Thank you for tuning in to this week's Buckeye Bar Guys on Buckeye Bar Talk. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit that all notifications bell so you see when new content is added, and please remember to like and share so we can grow our audience. Don't be afraid to comment. We want to know what you're thinking, and we want to know what content to add for you guys. IO.